What makes the trier effect, be it a judge or a jury, decide that some people's testimony is truthful while they seriously doubt of the testimony of others is affected by many factors, some consciously and some unconsciously. Characteristics of the individual who gives the testimony, of those making the judgment of the situation, and the content of what is said contributes to the perception that someone is lying or telling the truth. In Against the Odds, I refer to the truth default theory, which explains that we are predisposed to believe others are honest when they communicate with us. This was called in psychology a truthful default state that is adaptive. And we are naturally wired to be in this state because we assume that the communicator seeks to be understood. If each time we communicate with another individual, we had to evaluate and decide whether they were being honest or lying, this would entail a tremendous cognitive and emotional effort, strain our CPUs, and delay our reactions to the communication. But since communication is most of the time honest, the truth default state is an efficient process that enables cooperation between individuals. However, this naturally wired state exposes us to occasional deceit. In normal interactions, the suspicion that someone might be untruthful seldom arises, unless somehow triggered. However, if you have a suspicion or have learned that someone lied to you, then in the future communications, you might be alert and in fact develop a kind of a deceit default state for that person that you perceive as fraudulent. In criminal trials, we may be more inclined to a truthful default state when listening to victims, while wired to a deceit default state when listening to those accused. In civil trials, that differentiation might not be as clear. Spellman and Tenney in 2010 published an interesting review of the scientific literature. They found that the informant's physical characteristics can affect their perceived credibility. For instance, mock jurors tend to judge attractive individuals as more honest. Displaying a good memory, whether verified or not, enhances the perception of credibility. Detailed testimony, even when the details provided are trivial, is classified as more credible. In the book, I raise the hypothesis that the many trivial and odd details in her testimony may have indeed been a strategy to force this perception of credibility by the jurors. However, in my opinion, some of these details had in fact the opposite effect because they seem very unlikely, taking into account the expected emotional state according to what the actress was describing about the violence she allegedly suffered during the relationship with Depp. Displaying confidence also rates positively for a witness's credibility. Now, regarding the characteristics of the listener, it has been found that people in good mood tend to see others more favorably, and extroverts tend to rate expert witnesses as more credible than introverts. There is also some evidence that training in lie detection can improve the ability to detect when other individuals are lying. Several characteristics of the situation were also deemed relevant to the assessment of credibility. Clinical settings, such as psychiatric hospitals, institutions for the care of people with addiction problems, or forensic scenarios, may trigger the deceit default state, and people are perceived as less credible. Moreover, it has been found that people who focus their attention on assessing someone's credibility use both verbal and non-verbal cues. In contrast, people who are distracted or have their attention divided with other tasks are more influenced by peripheral cues such as the witness's appearance and confidence. The information gathered by judges and jurors through all these filters or impacting factors is then processed and results in a story. And during the course of the legal proceedings, each individual, according to their perceptions, develops an idea of what, how, why, and when the matters being tried happen. This idea or story may correspond to the factual reality or not. The decision regarding the narrative's validity and the witness's credibility is made based on the degree of coherence of such stories and a re-evaluation of how well they align with the evidence. And the evidence in this case was determinant. Photographs of Heard's face did not match the story of domestic violence. The violent monster portrayal that Heard's lawyers made of Depp did not match the photos of him, quote unquote, passed out on couches, chairs, and the floor. The story of an antisocial individual fueled by drugs did not match the numerous apology messages he wrote to the actress and her parents, despite the disparaging texts he sent to his friends. Although the UK judge found Heard and all defense witnesses believable, while disqualifying the witnesses called in support of Depp, in Fairfax, when the actress was subjected to the same discovery rules as Depp, the evidence contradicted her story. In addition, her testimony seemed rehearsed. Whatever the judge in the UK had perceived, the jurors in the US seemed to have perceived the opposite.